Perfect. Hey everybody, this is Cynthia, marketing lead from Bright Union, and today we're speaking with Rex Hygate of DeFi Safety. Next to me is sitting Chris. This is operational lead of Bright Union. Yeah, welcome Rex.
Thank you much.
Um, yeah, before we kick off, can you give us a short introduction?
So, yeah, how do we? I suppose the story. I've been in crypto. I actually started lurking just when the DAO happened, which was kind of neat. And I got in 2018, and we started a group called Secureth. Um, One of the first questions. I went to the F Denver hackathon, and I was just trying to figure out how I could contribute, and they kept on throwing the question back at me saying, how can you contribute? What do you have to add? So my background is in aerospace, avionics, which is aerospace software. And I realized how software on blockchain is very critical, like software on an aircraft. And the process for developing software on an airplane is very rigorous and strict. It's called DO-178C, DO-178D anyway. So I took that experience and I said, okay, I'll work on the quality aspects of it. I knew some of the auditors, but my software skills are not anywhere close enough to do auditing, but software quality is different. And the auditors that I spoke to, they were very supportive. They basically said, this is wonderful, nobody else is doing this, please do it. So we started something called secureth.org, which basically gave good software practice guidance. That was back in 2018. We got a little bit of money from the Ethereum Foundation. And of course, it never really got much of anywhere. Crypto winter happened. I kind of took that time off. And then when COVID happened, I suddenly had an awful lot of spare time because I was primarily doing sales in aerospace at that time, and the conferences really stopped. So I looked at going back into crypto, and this was just at the beginning of DeFi summer, and I was also trying to get an incentive method where people would want to use good software process quality. And thus, DeFi Safety was born, where we rigorously check the software quality of DeFi protocols. Yeah, that's how we got started.
Great. Yeah, nice to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Hey guys, Christian van Beredon, COO of Bright Union. Bright Union is a DeFi insurance startup based in Amsterdam. And our mission is to empower the crypto community to secure their financial future within DeFi by sharing crypto risk with each other. So I think there's quite an overlap in the area
100%.
Operate, Rex. Maybe what I always like about us is that we're also really our origination was truly from a problem. So our founders, both heavy into insurtech and crypto, we're seeing this rise of this new interesting sector, DeFi insurance, and so that there were quite some platforms popping up, but there was missing, let's say, a central marketplace which overarched the whole sector for a product overview, for education, but also for innovation. So hence Bright Union was born, and happy to be here.
Nice. Yeah, thanks. So it seems that we are both here to make DeFi a safer space.
Absolutely.
Yes, Rex, can you maybe highlight what some of the problems are that you have encountered and that you're trying to tackle?
Well, primarily what we're looking at on the protocol level, and we're expanding this now with our latest products, but on the protocol level, which is what we've been doing since May 2020, so pretty much for the life of DeFi, and we've done about 180 protocols. We do about a protocol a day on, I think, 9 chains now. What we're looking at is quality and transparency. So quality in as much as like the big thing that I realized very quickly with DeFi, you are investing in software. You are putting your money in a piece of software. It's not a person, it's not an organization, it's not a government. It's a piece of software. And that is what you place your faith in. That is your counterparty, so to speak. So the quality and the transparency of the software is absolutely critical, especially, you are looking at an unregulated space. There's you don't frequently the people who are running it are anonymous, and we understand that makes sense in a lot because it's not really legal anywhere yet. So yeah, we look at the quality. Did they do the work to make good software? People who make good software, they leave a trail behind showing the work they did. That's what we look for. We look at the public elements that they produce and see that that's there. People who rush software, they don't leave much behind, and that is an indicator of somebody who is not taking the time. And when you're investing, especially large parts of money, you really should put it into somebody who is taking the effort to do it right. And transparency is the other big aspect of it. First of all, is show your work. Make sure that everybody can easily find what you're doing because they place their faith in the software. And if you don't show the software, then there's very little reason for you to trust them. The other huge aspect, which we've been ratcheting up the importance of, is what we call admin or access controls. So the ultimate is immutable software. If your software is fully immutable, then you will trust it. It will not change. There's nothing the founders can do. The software is the software. You can trust it. But frequently, for perfectly valid reasons, there's updatable software. So the developers are able to update the software as they go along, which is great from a developer point of view. However, it's good to know how much of the software is updatable, how much can they change, is there a time lock, are they clearly saying the power they have over the software? So that's a big idea of transparency. So what we're looking at fundamentally is quality and transparency in the software.
Can you maybe give some examples of what might go wrong if the quality and transparency is not enough?
Well, all right. So the most extreme thing, which fortunately we see only very rarely now. To start with, it was a bit more common, but now almost everybody shows their smart contract addresses. If you don't show your smart contract addresses, let's say you have something, we have a pool, we invested, we reinvested in these different curve and urine pools, and you make this return and all of this, and we just take a 0.01% fee. So you sit back and say, okay, yeah, this is awesome. If they don't show their contracts, they can change the 0.01% fee to a 0.5% fee, and you just don't know. You have no way to notice that they've made that change. And that's where transparency comes in. So that's sort of the simplest and most extreme aspect of it. The other point going into the access controls, if they have the ability to completely change the software via software updates with no notice, there's no time lock. It's they don't have a DAO where all changes are discussed very carefully beforehand. Then they could once again completely change it that on Thursdays all of the money goes to this address, not that address, and goes into my personal stash. That's a type of change that theoretically people could do without transparency.
Yes, I understand. So basically all the people that are using your platform right now are investors who are trying to see if, the project that they're investing in, if they are legit.
The biggest thing that we're trying to do is, if you look at the way a lot of investors see DeFi, they say, this is amazing. I understand the efficiency. There's hardly any people involved. The expenses are so much lower, and look at the returns. The returns are great. They're coming up with innovative new products so fast. I love it. I love it. I love it. But I have no clue about all of this hacking and exploits and all of that. I just don't understand that, and that makes me nervous. So we're there to fill that gap. We do the analysis. We read the audits. We don't write audits, but we are professional audit readers, and we condense it all down to a simple score, 0 to 100. And that way, you know, when they're looking at this at the Nervous app, they can just look at that one score, and that's all they need. If they want to dig deeper, because we also are transparent, we show our work, they can get down to the 5 elements, you know, code and team, documentation, testing, security, oracles, to look at the individual scores of that, or they can go to the detailed report with references in order to be able to fully see exactly how we develop the score. So you can dig as deep as you want. Just take the 0 to 100 score, go right down and look at the details.
Yes, gotcha. So it's good if you want to prepare before you invest.
Exactly.
And you also mentioned, of course, the hacks. That is, of course, how we come in. Can an investor to do more to, you know, to make more of a prepared
Rex,
investment?
maybe first, still one question to you, right?
Sure.
2 examples that you mentioned is more, let's say, protection for internal use of the smart contracts, right? So the contract not being completely immutable, or the address not being published. To what extent does, let's say, your review also help in determining the susceptibility against external attacks and exploits, right?
Once again, it comes down to, I mean, the people who check that are auditors. They look at it, they look at the code from an attacker's perspective, and they write a report. And virtually all protocols are audits, but not all audits are created equal.
Yeah.
And you have to look at what they audited, when did they audit it. Sometimes the audits are done after the code is deployed. They find flaws and they can't fix it because the code's already deployed. So we look at, we look at the audit from it. And so a high quality audit score means that they've had an expert look at them from an attacker's perspective. The second point is, once again, process quality reflects people who are doing the work. People who are doing the work are generally prepared for that. As I said, the people who do the work, they leave breadcrumbs behind that show all the work that they've done. And people who rush don't have the breadcrumbs. People who rush are frequently unable to deal with hacks, unable to adapt quick enough because they don't have the expertise. I mean, the best example of that is Merlin on Binance Chain. They were attacked 3 times, and it was that you could tell that they had rented their team to do the development.
Yeah.
So when they brought in a rented team, the team deployed their protocol. The protocol was doing nicely. But when the hack happened, they didn't have the expertise in-house. They didn't know how to deal with it. And the problems that happened there were actually relatively known. And there were steps that they could have taken, but they didn't have the expertise within them. And then they got attacked a couple of times, and eventually they just threw up their hands and said, we're closing down. So you can see, based on, as I said, the breadcrumbs, the people who have and it's tough. It's just plain work. And it's, of course, it's work and resources. And God knows, we know that resources are a challenge in this industry, and that's not going away. But that's what you want. You want, when you're putting your money in, you want a team that knows their code, knows what they're doing, keeps up with what's happening in the industry, is constantly adapting. That's what you want, and that's what a high score reflects. People who are constantly improving.
So basically, maybe if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that yes, an audit can give certain, let's say, a certainty around the quality, and whether to which extent they can be attacked from the outside, but no, it's a guarantee. And then the breadcrumbs internally is more an indicator how well they can react and adapt in case something happens. But again, that's not a guarantee.
No, maybe. I mean, react and adapt. You take a look at the premium teams, when Cream had their recent hack in October, which was an innovative attack. No one had thought of that particular attack vector. They developed a new product. It had aspects which were original, and so there's that. But Aave, within a matter of hours, realized, you know, the attack had nothing to do with Aave, but they looked at it and they went, "Oh my God, that could happen to us," because they had a similar product, and they immediately stopped certain aspects of their protocol until they could adapt the code. That's the idea of a protocol that is on the ball, constantly looking, watching the environment, watching things that may not even affect them, that could functionally affect them. That's the type of reaction speed that you're looking for.
I think that's an interesting point that you make, right? I mean, Rex, what we see with the rise of DeFi and the amount involved that keep increasing, TVL keeps growing, that there's so much to gain for hackers and exploiters if they succeed in breaching, let's say, the safety, right?
Yes.
There's novel ways of attacking because the gains and rewards are so high.
Though I might add, an aspect that we're really starting to push on is bug bounties, because I'm super pleased with the bug bounties are going so high, and you have organizations like Immunify that will work with the people who find the bugs, so they're not alone going, you know, you really should pay me a huge amount of money because I found this. They work with you, so you have an organization behind you. And but these bug bounties, I think, are another thing, because they allow you to get big bucks legally.
Yeah.
You know, and that, for an awful lot of them, they're sitting there going, that's actually not a bad deal, because we all know getting the money out of DeFi, even if you're skilled, it's not easy. And the people are looking more and more. So yeah, I think the bug bounties, which is another part of our security score, is another aspect where DeFi is rapidly trying to get the attackers out.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a very nice development, right? Also required, right? Because the pace of innovation is so high.
It's so fast.
Open source. I mean, everyone's racing to have the newest, best product. And with that pace of innovation, sometimes indeed minor mistakes are made, which can have a big impact, right?
Yeah.
I think maybe to build on to that, right? I mean, there are quite some indicators you can check for the safety and security, but there are still the unknowns, right? I think what's an interesting, let's say, product to help you sleep at night and safely mitigate DeFi there is the decentralized insurance component.
Yes, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, can you maybe highlight a little bit, because like we said, an investor can first, before they invest, look into DeFi Safety, see how the score is, but what can he or she also do?
Sure, but maybe, all right, I mean, that's our forte at Bright Union, so I can explain. Decentralized insurance basically is a permissionless and decentralized community-based insurance, where on the one side you have an investor, for example, who invested in Aave. He has done all the checks and checked your website, Rex, and looked at the audits, but still feel that there might be some residual risk that he wants to insure. And sell that smart contract risk to a buyer who is on the other side of the transaction. Well, I think Aave is pretty safe. I buy at risk and I will act as the insurer. And will provide the capital, which can be used as a payout in case an insured event materializes, right? So I think the beauty of this, definitely, if you compare it to traditional finance insurance, is that it's permissionless, and the costs are super low because it's so efficient. The speed of payout, sometimes it happens within 5 to 10 days, Rex. I mean, can you imagine that occurring with a real insurance company? And I think not. And what's also nice is that with traditional insurance, there's this inherent conflict of interest, right? So the people that should pay out the money to you are also the ones to decide whether they want to or will pay out. And here, this is orchestrated in an objective claims process,
Mm-hmm.
which has proven to function quite nicely.
Yes, it really has. I've been quite impressed with the way the process has worked.
Yeah, and I think, especially then if you also look at the pricing, so this is still a relatively novel product, gaining more and more traction. I think we see a good traction with, let's say, DeFi investment funds or fintechs that want to store their money within DeFi, but use bigger amounts and use other people's money so they do the risk mitigation. I think it starts from, let's say, 2.5 to 3% annually.
Yep.
Within DeFi, you can easily get between 20 and 30% return annually. So, I mean,
it's a good deal.
Nice to be able to sleep at night.
Yep, 100%.
Let me stop there. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I still did the first question, because of course there are different ways of investing. I wanted to dig a little bit deeper in the types of risks that you can insure yourself for.
Sure. All right. So I think there are a couple of risks you can insure yourself against. I think the one is the protocol or the smart contract risk, right? Something happening at app or anchor that the protocol doesn't function as intended in the smart contract. That can be due to some internal malfunction, but also due to an external, let's say, exploit. For example, a flash loan. You're probably familiar with that, Rex. I think that's one. I think another interesting one is that you can insure yourself against stablecoin depegging, right? So at Bright Union, we tend to look at the risks in a layered approach, right? So obviously, you have the risk attached to the blockchain you're using, Ethereum, APYs, which has its own parameters, and then you have a protocol which uses that chain. So, for example, app or Anchor, and then on top of that, you often see within DeFi that stable coins are used, which can be asset-backed or which can be synthetically with an algorithm being pegged to the dollar. So there is also a risk that the stablecoin that you use depegs from its peg, which means you're also at a loss. I think that's a very interesting insurance type, which is gaining traction. And then I think you can also insure against rug pulls, right? So that's where the protocol, let's say, pulls the curtain, draws the liquidity, basically makes the token worthless.
Yeah, when the team disappears with your fund.
Yeah, I think that's a very scary risk if that happens, but in my personal opinion, I think that risk is rather limited with the bigger protocols.
Yes, if their access controls are good, you can software-wise mitigate against that. Yes. In other words, if they have, if they clearly say this is how much we can update of the code, then that may say keep your principal at least safe. And if they say, there's a 1 week time lock, then you have that week for in order to get your code out if it is observed by the community that, hey guys, this is a rug pull. So in the software with a sufficiently transparent protocol, you can fully mitigate the risk of a rug pull. Rug pulls, honestly, they happen generally super at the beginning, and we salute the guys at RugDoc that are working towards that. I think it's a solvable problem. I hope the industry will get together on that, because if we can advertise enough that the software of a startup, of an ICO, has to be sufficiently clear, then we can get past rug pulls. I think that's a solvable problem, and we'd like to help.
Yeah, fully agree.
Can I ask how long it takes for a new project to be reviewed by you?
It normally takes about a week, and a lot of this is because our analysts, we have an analyst team, and our analyst team looks over the protocol and develops the report without asking the protocol based on their public information. In other words, we only look at information that everyone can see. And we come up with the score, and then, and this is what generally takes the time, we present this score to the protocol. Confidentially, we don't do it publicly. We don't make we sit back and, we did a review, here's your score. And all of the questions are public. So that if they don't like the score, it doesn't become, oh, how could you do this and such. It becomes, let's, question by question, let's look at the questions. Why don't you have your tests publicly available? Why don't you, why don't you have your test report? Why don't you, it becomes a question. A lot of protocols, I mean, the protocol that we did yesterday, Pool Together, these guys, they talk to us, they're very responsive, and they're sitting there, yeah, that's a good idea, we should display this, and then they do it, and they work with us to improve their score. And we're always willing to work with protocols to improve their score, because then what we're doing is we're improving the public information that they're showing everybody. And when they're transparent and they're showing their steps. We did an analysis actually at Christmas. We went back over the 18 months of data and we said, all right, if your score is 80% or higher, are you actually safe? And the results were well into the 90s. Basically, yes, the people who do the work have not been hacked. And that went back to hacked, I think it was July 2020. So basically from the beginning of DeFi to the last Christmas, had somebody been hacked. If you check the knowledge base on our website, you can see the whole report on that. And honestly, the only one, it was Cream, who they were the ones that had a few incidents.
Would you mind showing us briefly what a quality report looks like? I'm quite curious.
Well, I'm not sure if you go to the PQRs, would you like me to share my screen?
Yes, why not?
Okay, hold on. So looking at Pool Together, which was the report that we did done in so you can see they're absolutely awesome. 94% overall score, code and team, 100%, documentation, 100%, testing in the high 80s, security, 95%, oracles, 100%. And if you go to the actual full report for this, can you see this well enough?
Yes.
Yeah.
You see here, so they're on Ethereum, Polygon, and Avalanche. This is Pooled Together v4. And then you can look at code and team. Here are the questions that actually build it up. Are the smart contract address is easy to find? How active is the contract? Does the protocol have a public repository? Is the team public or anonymous? It is a score. It's not a huge score, but it is a score. And then we go over documentation. Do they have a white paper? Is their software architecture documented? Is the software fully documented? And do they have traceability from the documentation to the source code? And then we look at testing. Do they have a fully tested protocol? How well covered is it? If you run all of your tests, you should test all of your code. That is sort of code coverage. So we look at that. Is there a detailed report? And then do you have an active test net? Did you do formal verifications? That was one of the things that Pool Together didn't do. Security, is the protocol sufficiently audited? That's a big question for us. And that's where we read the audits that they've done. We look at the protocol and we give a score on that. And they, Pool Together, they do their audits. They do the audits before they deploy the code so that they can correct it. And they do them often. And then the bug bounty, and if you go, let's say we go to the security section, it was audited before release and they've had many audits in there. You can see the actual answer, and then the link to the audit is right there. And then our guidance on how the score comes up, the guidance for audits is quite complex. And then you sit back and say the bug bounty. So their bug bounty is actually rather small, 25K. And they have a 100K Code Arena contest, so they got a 60% on that. So We take all of that into account, and then so each of the questions are detailed in our report.
Rex, maybe one additional question, right? To what extent does the complexity of the protocol and the smart contracts and the transactions that they facilitate relate to the security and the acceptability for hacks and exploits?
I mean, there's limitations on what we can do. So we do not give penalties for complexity at this moment. And we're into the 8th iteration of our PQR process.
Yeah.
So we just released an improvement, I guess it was last month. So it's difficult to score complexity. Because it's complexity in what manner, why, and such. And we try to keep questions where the answers are clear and not something we try to take as much arbitrary judgment out of it. Yeah. We want it, our motto is objective, transparent, and independent. We never take money from the protocols for these scores. We are not paid by the protocols. There's no advertising on our report. We are going to go to revenue in the next few months, and our revenue will be the users of DeFi. Originally we're going to be aiming for the larger users of DeFi, and they'll be paying a subscription type of thing. So our incentives will be aligned. So we'll be paid by users to review protocols for users.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get the risk-adjusted, let's say, earnings capacities of the different DeFi opportunities that are there. Yes.
There we go. Yeah. Sorry, I was fiddling to get that, and I keep on hitting the mute on the tab.
One more question, Rex, to pick
Yes,
your brain on, right? I mean, there's a lot of talks about the interconnectivity within DeFi between
the Lego building blocks
and the money being used and reused and staked and stapled, and to what extent is that included in the review, or is that out of scope?
At the moment, it's out of scope. One of the aspects that what we're trying to do is proper documentation of the Lego blocks. And this is something that we have seen, and this is something that I hope to put in 0.9. So that when a protocol wants to use a Lego block from another protocol, they have a documentation package, which is sort of, this is how you use it. And if you look at the traditional software documentation of it, that's not really included. And they have this a bit with the API, but the APIs tend to be a little bit limited. And the API is basically how would you do a web request of, that's more of a Web 2 thing. But the whole documentation of Lego blocks is something that we are planning on implementing. So we hope to have that out, and it'll be a few months probably before 0.9 comes in.
Yeah, I think that would be also a big step forward, right? I mean, the secure one protocol, that's super important to have that clear view on that. But if that route uses less safe protocols as Lego blocks, right? I mean, then you're as strong as the weakest link. In that case.
Yeah, our new product is called Contract Scores, which is, it digs down the next layer. So we're actually scoring the individual pools, the address that you interface with when you do the confirm on MetaMask. And with this, we will be, we're at the 3rd iteration of the algorithm there, and we're still developing it. But there, for instance, we will have the, the pools that are in there, you would have the lowest score of the pool would be the contract score pool for all of the ones in that pool. That is an improvement that we're planning on doing on that. So that's a new product that we're doing. Another one that we're aiming at, and we'll probably see in a few months, is chain scores, where we'll actually have a quality score on the layer 1 chain.
Yeah.
And this assists you know, so that say pooled together on Avalanche won't have the same score as pooled together on Ethereum. I mean, it won't have the same fees, but it'll also, but the safety will be different also.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? I mean, that coincides with the approach that we use of layering the risks, right?
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Are there any other exciting things that you're working on in the future? Because I heard you just came back from ETH Denver.
Yes, that was awesome. That's my 4th ETH Denver. I started in 2018. It was such a great time, and being able to meet so many people. Yes, it was hugely valuable. And we sent the whole team down there, and they had a great time. We all came back with colds, but because there was just so many people in one small place. Boy, oh boy.
Just a cold, or the one we do not mention?
Mostly just a cold, mostly. But it was, yeah, they tested everybody going in, but yeah, there was just so many people, so many parties.
Yeah, nice. We're also excited about the whole conference, season starting again.
Yes, Paris is coming for you guys.
Yeah.
Paris nearby, and I think 1 or 2 weeks later here in Amsterdam. So we'll be.
Oh yes, oh cool. Yes, I hope to be able to get back to Amsterdam one of these days.
Would be nice. Is there anything else that we can to wrap it up?
Yeah, maybe briefly. I mean, Rex, I love what you guys are doing in let's say all the questions that I asked. You say, oh yes, we're working on that. We flag that as a little more an improvement point within the industry. I think we kind of have the same mentality and mindset at Bright Union.
Absolutely. We want to be an independent, comprehensive technical risk analysis team. So we're looking at technical risk from a bunch of different dimensions. We're quantifying it so that the people who need these numbers, who need this analysis, can get it. That's going to be our swim lane. And we hope that this will be an assistance for insurance. It's information that can be used. And, you know, you guys can look at subscribing and do check out our beta scores. The API for our scores is the data that you can input and you can use for it.
Yeah.
100%.
Can you also check like individual products, or is it always on?
Well, this is contract scores. Contract scores will give you a score on an individual pool. So that is it's in beta now, and we'll be releasing it in probably a couple of months.
Okay. Well, what does that mean? It's in beta. Can we apply for a beta testing?
Yes, absolutely. Go onto our website on the home page. You'll see sign up for beta. Go for it, and you'll be able to get all of the data.
Cool. Because we recently launched a new product, the Bright Risk Index. Basically, the biggest challenge in DeFi insurance is the lack of available capital, right? So the insurance covers for the most popular DeFi protocols are always sold out. It's because supplying capital and becoming an insurer is just not user-friendly enough yet. I mean, the returns APYs, they are generous. It's like between 10 and 30% annually. I think that's fine. But you have the high transaction fees. It's undiversified. You have, let's say, negative incentives for taking out your capital. So it's quite rigid. You got the withdrawal periods, the cool down periods, the slashing. So I think we're an aggregator, right? So we're trying to be, let's say, a marketplace for the whole industry. So we built this one cool product, which is a tokenized position, which does all the hard work for you and makes it as easy as it can be to become an insurer and still boosting a 20 to 30% APY on stablecoins.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, so we just launched it. Also, let's say, very conservative. I mean, risk and mitigation is in our DNA. So we're in a phased approach, releasing that to the public. The audit is ongoing, but we definitely, if we can try to get a contract score on that with you guys, I think that would be super.
Okay, yeah, no, let us know. We can definitely do that. We have a couple of ideas with respect to insurance. So maybe we can do another call on a more technical aspect, and we can start to dig deeper into that.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Cynthia, Chris,
yeah,
it's been a great pleasure.
Lovely to talk to you. And yeah, let's catch up on another time.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.